My name is Callista Monroe. I'm 35 years old, and for the last decade, I've lived and breathed the law. Chicago, 2023. A city of steel and glass, ambition and blood. For me, it was more than home. It was the battlefield where reputations were built and destroyed inside the marble walls of the courthouse. I worked at Barton Hale, one of the most cutthroat law firms in the city. The kind of place where partners smiled at you in the elevator, but sharpened knives behind your back. And I was used to it. I thrived in it. At least I thought I did. The case that changed everything was State versus Kingsley, a high-profile fraud trial that had every news camera in Chicago glued to the courtroom steps. Billions of dollars, political connections, the kind of case that could make or break an attorney's entire career. And I was ready to make mine. For months, I'd buried myself in the evidence, bank records, emails, late-night depositions. I knew this case better than I knew my own reflection. I had one weapon, a set of damning files I uncovered deep in discovery. They weren't just strong, they were explosive. They tied the defendant to offshore accounts, proving fraud beyond doubt. I saved them, organized them, prepared them. They were mine, my chance to finally prove I wasn't just another associate clawing for scraps. But then, they were gone. The morning before trial, I sat at my desk, coffee growing cold, staring at my computer screen. The folder I had built, weeks of work, sleepless nights, empty, vanished. Panic surged through me as I clicked through backup drives, email chains, cloud folders. Nothing. And then came the announcement. My colleague, Nathan Cross, walked into the office with his perfect suit and his snake oil smile. He held up a flash drive like a trophy. "Guess who just cracked the case?" he said to the team, basking in their applause. My files, my evidence, my work. Everyone congratulated him. Partners clapped him on the back. Reporters outside hailed him as the star associate who unearthed the smoking gun. And me? I was left sitting in the corner, numb, the taste of bile burning my throat. He had stolen everything. That night, I walked the dark streets of Chicago, the skyscrapers towering above me like silent judges. My reflection stared back from the glass windows, hollow and tired. How could I have been so blind, I thought? How could I let him take everything I built? The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. This wasn't just about credit. It was my career, my name, my chance. Gone in an instant, stolen by someone I once trusted. I almost gave up, almost packed my things and walked away. But then, as I sat at my desk, long after midnight, I remembered something. The hidden backups, the ones I kept off the firm's servers, files Nathan didn't know existed. I pulled open my drawer, my hands trembling, and reached for the encrypted drive I had hidden there weeks ago. And when I clicked it open, the screen lit up with the truth Nathan thought he had buried. The real battle wasn't over. It was just beginning. The files glowed on my screen, line after line of proof Nathan thought he had stolen. I leaned back in my chair, exhaustion mixing with adrenaline. He thought he won. He thought I'd crumble, but he didn't know me. I wasn't just fighting for credit anymore. I was fighting for survival. In Barton Hale, if someone branded you as the weak link, you were finished. The next morning, the office buzzed like a hive. Reporters swarmed the lobby, cameras flashing. Nathan strutted through them like a celebrity, tossing sound bites to the press. "This case will define corporate accountability in our time," he declared, his voice silky. "And I'm proud to have uncovered the evidence that will lead to justice." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. My evidence, my words. At my desk, I quietly loaded my encrypted drive into my laptop. I wasn't going to let him bury me. But I couldn't just drop the files into the system. He'd claim I fabricated them. Or worse, the partners would believe him. No, I had to be smarter. That's when I remembered. The metadata. Every file carries a fingerprint. Timestamps, author names, creation history. And these files? They bore my digital signature, proof they were mine, not his. I smiled for the first time in days. Checkmate, Nathan. But timing was everything. If I revealed the truth too soon, he'd spin it. If I waited too long, the trial would be lost. The courtroom was packed the next morning, rows of journalists, lawyers, the defendant's entourage. The judge entered, robes sweeping, and silence fell like a hammer. Nathan sat beside me at the plaintiff's table, his grin smug, his cufflinks glinting under the lights. He leaned close and whispered, "You look nervous, Callista. Don't worry. I'll make sure you get a mention in the footnotes of history." His breath smelled of victory. I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced a cold smile. Enjoy it while it lasts. Opening arguments began. Nathan stood, smooth and practiced, painting himself as the brilliant attorney who had cracked the case. The jury nodded, intrigued. The press scribbled his words like scripture. I sat there silent, hands folded over the encrypted drive in my lap. My heart thundered, but I knew my moment was coming. When he clicked the projector and began unveiling his evidence, my pulse spiked. Slide after slide of my work filled the courtroom screen. The judge nodded. The jury scribbled notes. And then, the thought hit me like ice. He doesn't know about the backup files. He doesn't know about the metadata. But soon, everyone would. I opened my laptop under the table, fingers trembling, and prepared to strike. The courtroom lights were harsh, reflecting off polished wood and tired eyes. Nathan's voice carried through the chamber, smooth as silk, as he walked the jury through his evidence. Every word felt like a knife in my back. But beneath my calm expression, my mind was a storm. Patience, Callista. Timing is everything. When Nathan sat down, smugness radiating off him, I stood. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I addressed the judge. Your Honor, I said evenly, with the court's permission, I'd like to cross-check the foundation of this evidence for accuracy. The judge raised an eyebrow. Nathan shifted uneasily. Proceed, Ms. Monroe. I walked to the screen where Nathan's slides glowed, my fingers brushing the edges of the projector. Mr. Cross has presented critical files to this court, but every file tells two stories, the content and the metadata. Murmurs rippled through the room. Nathan straightened in his chair, the grin slipping ever so slightly. The metadata, I continued, my voice sharpening. Records when and by whom a document was created. And these files? They weren't created by Mr. Cross. Gasps. The jury leaned forward. Nathan shot up. Objection, she's grandstanding. But the judge leaned forward. Do you have proof, Ms. Monroe? I met his gaze and nodded. Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to submit supplemental documentation. From my laptop, I pulled up the backup drive, hands steady though my pulse thundered. The screen lit with creation logs, my name stamped across every file. This evidence was authored by me, I said firmly. And I have the original backups to prove it. The jury's eyes snapped to Nathan. The partners in the gallery whispered furiously. The smug grin on his face shattered, replaced with pale fury. Nathan leapt to his feet, his voice cracking. She's lying. Those files were given to me anonymously. I was only trying to protect the case. But his words sounded hollow. The damage was already done. And as I turned back toward the bench, the judge's expression unreadable, I knew this was only the beginning, because Nathan wouldn't go down without a fight. The silence after my reveal was heavy, almost suffocating. The jury's eyes darted between Nathan and me, whispers filling the gallery like buzzing bees. Nathan adjusted his tie, his face pale but defiant. Your Honor, he said, his voice tightening, this is a distraction. Ms. Monroe has a history of overreaching. Perhaps she's manufactured these so-called backups to steal credit for herself. My blood ran hot. Manufactured? After all the nights I bled into this case? I stepped forward, voice steady. I have chain of custody documentation for every file, time-stamped and verified. Mr. Cross can't erase the truth. The judge raised a hand. Enough. This court will review the submissions. Until then, both counsels are advised to proceed carefully. Nathan sat down slowly, but not before leaning toward me, his whisper sharp as a blade. Nice trick. But you're not winning this war, Callista. You've just declared it. My heart pounded. He wasn't just angry, he was dangerous now. That evening, back at Barton Hale, the atmosphere was ice cold. Partners walked past me without a word, some with narrowed eyes. Nathan had already spun his version of events. Callista Monroe, desperate and jealous, trying to claw credit from a colleague. In the break room, I caught two associates whispering, Did you hear? She forged backups. I thought she was sharp. Guess not. The walls closed in on me. Reputation in a law firm is fragile, a glass statue waiting to shatter. One rumor, one whisper, and everything could collapse. I stormed into my office, slamming the door. Rage boiled in my chest. Nathan was fighting me in two courts now, the court of law and the court of reputation. I opened my laptop and scrolled through the files again. Proof after proof, undeniable. But it wasn't enough. If I wanted to crush Nathan, I couldn't just prove him wrong. I had to expose him for what he really was. A liar, a thief, and a fraud. As midnight approached, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You don't know who you're up against. Drop it now, or you'll regret it. My hands trembled. Was Nathan behind this, or someone else protecting him? I stared at the glowing screen. My reflection fractured across it. Fear twisted in my gut, but beneath it, something else burned hotter. Resolve. I typed a single reply. See you in court. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay awake, replaying the text in my mind. You don't know who you're up against. The words echoed like a curse. It wasn't just Nathan. Someone else was backing him, protecting him. By dawn, I had made a decision. If I wanted to win, I couldn't just fight in court. I had to investigate. I started with the firm's billing records. Every case generates a paper trail. Hours billed, expenses logged. And there it was, buried among numbers. A string of consulting fees, tied to Nathan. Large sums, vague descriptions. I frowned. Consulting with who? I copied the entries, highlighting the dates. They aligned almost perfectly with the disappearance of my files. Someone had been paid to make them vanish. At court that afternoon, Nathan swaggered through his arguments. He was slick, confident. Until I raised a new objection. Your Honor, I said, rising to my feet. There are inconsistencies in the billing trail for Mr. Cross's discovery process. I believe this evidence was mishandled and deserves scrutiny. The courtroom stirred. Nathan's jaw tightened, his mask of confidence cracking. The judge leaned forward. That's a serious claim, Ms. Monroe. Do you have documentation? I slid a printed sheet across. Yes, Your Honor. Billing logs showing questionable consulting fees tied directly to this evidence. The room buzzed. Nathan stood, fists clenched. This is absurd. She's grasping at straws. But I saw it in his eyes. Panic. The judge sighed. Very well, the court will review these records. Until then, this evidence is provisional. Nathan shot me a glare so sharp it could cut glass. That evening, as I left the courthouse, I felt the weight of stairs behind me. The city was loud. Horns, voices, footsteps. But one sound stood out. Shoes clicking in rhythm with mine. I turned a corner. The footsteps followed. My pulse raced. I quickened my pace, clutching my bag. The alley stretched ahead, shadows deepening. Ms. Monroe, a voice called softly from behind. Male? Calm? Too calm. I froze. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Tall, suit pressed, eyes cold. Not Nathan. Someone else. You're digging in places you shouldn't, he said, his tone like ice. If you value your career and your life, you'll stop. And then he slipped a card into my hand. No name, no number. Just 3 letters embossed in gold. KMC. I stood alone in the alley, trembling. Nathan wasn't working alone. And now, I had a bigger enemy than I'd ever imagined. I turned the card over and over in my hand that night. 3 letters. KMC. No number. No address. No clue. It was like a shadow whispering from the dark. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, typing the initials into every database I could access. Nothing useful. Acronyms, corporations, even charities. But then, deep in an old legal registry, a match blinked onto my screen. Kensington Management Consortium, a shell company registered offshore. No board members listed, no legitimate business activity, just one red flag after another. And yet, it appeared in Barton Hale's billing history. Nathan's consulting fees traced right back to it. I leaned back, a cold realization crawling down my spine. Nathan hadn't just stolen my files. He had delivered them. To them. The next morning, court was brutal. Nathan fought hard to recover, throwing objections at every word I spoke, sneering when the jury laughed at his floundering. He was unraveling, but dangerous animals lash out hardest when cornered. During recess, he cornered me in the hallway, voice low and venomous. You don't know what you've started, Callista. Do you think exposing me will save you? The people I work with, they don't forgive. I met his eyes, forcing my voice steady. Then they can stand in line. I'm not afraid of you anymore. But truthfully, I was afraid, not of Nathan, but of whatever KMC really was. That evening, I confided in Ms. Alvarez, an older partner who had mentored me years ago. She frowned deeply when I showed her the card. Callista, KMC isn't just a shell company. I've heard whispers. Money laundering, corporate espionage, blackmail. Powerful clients. If you keep digging, you won't just risk your job. You'll risk your life. Her warning sent ice through my veins, but I couldn't stop now. Not after everything Nathan had done. Later that night, I sat at my desk again, scrolling through the hidden drive, desperate for more links. And then, buried inside one folder, I found it. An internal memo with Barton and Hale letterhead. But the signature at the bottom wasn't Nathan's. It was one of the senior partners. The memo lay on my desk, its ink burning into my eyes. Signed by Edward Hale, one of the founding partners. Not Nathan, not a rogue associate trying to climb the ladder, but the man at the top. My chest tightened. If Hale is tied to KMC, then Nathan isn't the mastermind. He's just the messenger. The betrayal cut deeper than ever. Barton and Hale wasn't just failing to protect me, it was complicit. The next morning, the firm buzzed with its usual polished chaos. But I couldn't unsee the cracks now, the whispers in corners, the sudden silences when I walked by. Edward Hale himself approached me in the corridor, immaculate suit, calm eyes that revealed nothing. He placed a hand on my shoulder as if I were family. "You've been doing excellent work, Callista," he said smoothly. "But you should let Nathan handle the Kingsley case from here. It's better for everyone." My throat went dry. Better for who? I forced a polite smile. "With respect, sir, I intend to see this case through. My name is on the filings." His eyes hardened for a fraction of a second. Then the smile returned. "Stubborn, just like your father was. Careful, it didn't end well for him." I froze. My father had been a small-town lawyer, gone too soon in what everyone called an accident. But hearing Hale mention him, with that edge in his voice, it was no coincidence. Was this bigger than just one case? In court that afternoon, Nathan was different, jittery. He stumbled over words, sweat gathering at his collar. I realized Hale must have put pressure on him too. He wasn't just fighting me now, he was fighting to survive inside his own alliance. During cross-examination, I began to press harder. I showed the jury patterns in the financial trail, hinting at forces bigger than Nathan's theft. Every time I spoke, Nathan objected, his panic obvious. But just as I started to gain ground, the judge called a sudden recess. Back in the hallway, my phone buzzed again. Another text. "Last warning, drop the case. KMC." My stomach dropped. Someone inside the courthouse was watching me. I looked up, scanning the crowd, and that's when I saw him. Not Nathan, not Hale. A man in a dark coat sitting quietly in the back row, eyes locked on me the entire time. He lifted his phone slowly, pressed send, and smirked. The man in the coat haunted my thoughts all night. The way he smirked, the way he sent that text in plain sight, like he wanted me to know I was being watched. I barely slept. By dawn, the city looked sharper, colder, every stranger on the train a potential threat. At the firm, whispers followed me again. Nathan strutted through the halls like nothing had happened, but I could see the cracks in his mask, his smile too wide, his laugh too forced. He was playing a part, but who was writing his script? Hale or KMC? I dug deeper into the memo I had found. Hale's signature, the financial codes, the offshore links. Piece by piece, it became clear. KMC wasn't just laundering money. They were using Barton and Hale as their shield. And I had stumbled right into the middle. That afternoon in court, I tried to keep my focus. The defense was on the ropes, their client sweating bullets as the jury absorbed my arguments. But Nathan fought like a man possessed, throwing objections, twisting words, trying to keep me off balance. During recess, I slipped into the courthouse library to breathe. That's when I noticed him again, the man in the dark coat. He was at the far end of the room, pretending to read a case file, but his eyes never left me. I stood, forcing myself to walk past him, pretending to ignore the chill crawling down my spine. But as I passed, he spoke. So quietly, I almost thought I imagined it. "You're in over your head, Ms. Monroe. People who dig too deep don't live long." I kept walking, my fist clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. Back in the courtroom, the judge called us forward. "Counsel, we've reviewed the supplemental documents," he said. My heart hammered. This was it. My chance to prove Nathan's theft beyond doubt. But before I could open my mouth, Nathan jumped in. "Your Honor, I have reason to believe Ms. Monroe's so-called backups are fabricated. In fact, I've obtained an expert witness who will testify that these files were tampered with." Gasps filled the room. My throat went dry. He's turning my own strategy against me. The judge nodded. Very well, we'll hear this expert tomorrow. Nathan leaned back in his chair, that snake smile curling his lips. And in that moment, I knew he had just raised the stakes. Because if I didn't disprove his new expert, the jury wouldn't just doubt me, they would destroy me. The word expert rattled in my brain like a loose bullet. If Nathan had someone willing to testify that my files were fake, it could destroy me. That night, I scoured every resource I had, legal directories, tech consultants, even old contacts from law school. I needed to know who Nathan had recruited. By midnight, I found him, Dr. Leonard Kravis, a digital forensics consultant with a spotless record, at least on paper. Dozens of cases, hundreds of appearances. Juries trusted him, judges trusted him. But there was one thing his profile didn't say. I remembered a rumor from years ago, that Kravis had once been caught fabricating reports for corporate clients. Nothing proven, but the whispers never went away. If I could confirm it, I could destroy his credibility. I called Ms. Alvarez, my mentor, even though it was late. Her voice was groggy but firm. Kravis? Oh, I've heard the rumors too. But if you want proof, talk to someone who worked with him. Try Maya Chen. She was an associate on one of his old cases. She might still have the files. The next morning, I tracked Maya down at a small cafe. She was wary at first, but when I explained what was happening, her eyes narrowed. Kravis ruined a case I worked on, she said bitterly. We knew he falsified the metadata, but the partners buried it. I kept copies, though, just in case. She slid a flash drive across the table. This could help you, but be careful. If Kravis finds out, he'll come after you. I clutched the drive like it was gold. This was it, the weapon I needed. Back at the firm, Nathan cornered me again, his smile dripping poison. Ready for tomorrow? I'd hate for you to embarrass yourself in front of the jury. I smiled back, ice in my veins. Funny, I was going to say the same thing to you. That night, I sat at my desk, the flash drive glowing in my laptop. The files opened, one by one. Emails, drafts, hidden edits Kravis had tried to erase. Proof that his testimony could be bought. I felt hope surge through me until I noticed something. At the bottom of one file was a forwarded email from Kravis to Edward Hale. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just Nathan's game. Hale had handpicked Kravis. And tomorrow in open court, they were both ready to bury me. The courtroom was packed tighter than ever. The press filled the gallery, cameras flashing as the star witness prepared to take the stand. Dr. Leonard Kravis walked in like a man who owned the room. Crisp suit, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He carried himself with the authority of someone juries had trusted for decades. Nathan greeted him with a handshake, smiling like the cat who'd caught the canary. Dr. Kravis, Nathan began smoothly. Would you please explain your findings regarding Ms. Monroe's files? Kravis adjusted his glasses and looked straight at the jury. Upon inspection, the files presented by Ms. Monroe show irregularities, metadata inconsistencies consistent with tampering. In my professional opinion, these files cannot be relied upon as authentic. Gasps rippled through the room. The jury scribbled furiously. Nathan's smile widened. My stomach twisted. This is it. He's selling the lie. When my turn came, I rose slowly, clutching Maya's flash drive like a lifeline. Dr. Kravis, I said, voice steady. You've testified in dozens of cases. All of them trustworthy? Of course, he said, smug. I clicked my laptop, projecting an email onto the courtroom screen. His own name glared back at him in the header. Then perhaps you can explain this. An internal draft you authored 5 years ago, in which you altered metadata to frame a corporate whistleblower. Would you like me to scroll through the full set of documents, or should we start with this one? The room exploded in murmurs. Kravis's face drained of color. That's taken out of context. Context? I shot back. Or proof that your so-called expertise is for sale to the highest bidder. Nathan leapt up. Objection! The judge slammed his gavel. Overruled. The witness will answer. Kravis stammered, sweat dripping down his temples. The jury leaned in, watching the collapse unfold in real time. I pressed harder. And while we're at it, perhaps you can explain why you were forwarding drafts directly to Edward Hale. Should we call him to the stand as well? The silence was deafening. Hale's name dropped into the room like a bomb. Even the partners in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. Kravis sputtered, I can't answer that. The judge frowned. Then your credibility is in serious question, Dr. Kravis. Nathan's face went pale, his plan disintegrating before his eyes. I stood tall, my voice ringing clear. The truth is simple. These files were created by me. Kravis's testimony is compromised, and Nathan Cross tried to deceive this court with stolen work. The courtroom erupted, reporters rushing out, jurors whispering, partners hissing at one another. For the first time, I felt power tilt back to me. But then, as the session adjourned, I caught sight of Hale in the back row. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't even angry. He was smiling, like a man who still held cards I hadn't seen. For one brief moment, I thought I had won. The jury had seen Kravis unravel, Nathan's face had gone white, and the press was eating up every word. But Hale's smile in the back row never left me. That night, as I sat in my office, the city glowing outside the window, a knock came at my door. I opened it to find a courier. He handed me an envelope and disappeared down the hall without a word. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a photograph of my apartment door, taken that evening, and beneath it, a handwritten note. "You're in my house now. E.H." My hands shook. Hale wasn't just threatening my career anymore. He was telling me he could walk into my life whenever he wanted. I called Ms. Alvarez immediately. "He knows where I live. What do I do?" Her voice was grim. "You need allies, Callista. Real ones. If Hale is tied to KMC, he's got resources beyond Nathan. Don't fight him alone. We'll gather support inside the firm, but be careful who you trust." The next day in court, Hale's influence became clearer. Nathan was subdued, beaten down. But the defense suddenly had new motions filed. Well prepared, well funded. This wasn't Nathan's work. It was Hale pulling strings. At lunch, I confronted him in the courthouse hallway. "Why are you doing this, Edward?" His smile was razor thin. "Because, Ms. Monroe, you think law is about justice. It isn't. It's about power. And you're standing in the way of mine." For the first time, I saw it plainly. Hale wasn't just a lawyer. He was a kingmaker. And I was the rebel threatening his throne. That evening, exhausted, I returned home to find my apartment door unlocked. My heart froze. Slowly, I pushed it open. The lights were off, my furniture untouched. But on the kitchen counter sat a wine glass. Half full, still warm. Someone had been inside, waiting. The wine glass sat like a warning. I didn't touch it, didn't breathe. I just backed away slowly and dialed 911. By the time the officers arrived, the intruder was long gone. They dusted for prints, asked me questions, but I could see it in their eyes. This wasn't going anywhere. Whoever had been inside knew what they were doing. After they left, I sat on the couch, staring at the glass. My sanctuary was gone. My apartment was no longer mine. I called Alvarez again, voice trembling. He was here, in my home. He wants me to know he can reach me anywhere. Her reply was firm. Then we reached back. "You can't let him push you into fear. We need to build allies, Callista, other partners, associates who've seen enough of Hale's dealings to be ready to stand against him." The next day, I quietly began pulling threads, talking to people in the firm who looked uneasy. One junior partner admitted Hale had forced him to sign off on shady billing practices. Another whispered about offshore accounts linked to consultants. The picture was coming together. Barton and Hale wasn't just corrupt at the edges, it was rotten at the core. But gathering allies meant taking risks. I didn't know who I could trust. In court, Nathan looked worse than ever. Sweaty, twitchy, almost broken. Hale had clearly shifted his focus away from Nathan, treating him like a pawn already sacrificed. During a recess, Nathan cornered me in the stairwell. His voice cracked. "You think you're winning? You're not. Hale will bury you. He's buried better than you before." I stared at him. "So why are you still fighting for him?" His eyes flickered with fear. "Because I don't have a choice." Then he stormed away, shoulders shaking. That night, exhausted, I returned to my apartment. The locks had been changed, by me this time. But when I stepped inside, my phone buzzed. A new message, from an unknown number. The glass was just a taste. Next time, it won't be empty. KMC. My knees went weak. They weren't bluffing anymore. The threat replayed in my mind over and over. Next time, it won't be empty. I barely slept. But when morning came, I forced myself back into Barton and Hale. If Hale wanted to intimidate me, he'd have to watch me walk right through the front doors like I owned the place. Inside, I started quietly reaching out. A junior associate, trembling, confessed that Hale often pushed staff to shred unnecessary files. Another admitted seeing checks signed by offshore accounts, always routed through shell companies like KMC. Piece by piece, the puzzle grew darker. Hale wasn't just bending the law. He was using the firm as a laundering machine. By lunchtime, I met with Ms. Alvarez in her office. She locked the door, lowering her voice. "You're building a case within the case. If we gather enough witnesses, enough proof, we can take Hale down, not just in court, but in the firm itself." I nodded. Then we hit him from both sides, trial and firm. He won't see it coming. But even as I spoke, my phone buzzed again. A new message. "We know about your little meetings. Stop, or one of your friends won't wake up." KMC. I showed it to Alvarez. Her face went pale. "They're watching everything. Callista, this isn't just intimidation anymore. It's a war." That afternoon in court, Hale didn't sit in the gallery. Instead, one of his personal aides appeared. A man with the same dark coat I'd seen before. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just sat there, staring at me with cold eyes. Nathan, meanwhile, was unraveling. He stumbled over objections, his voice cracking. I almost pitied him. Almost. Hale had thrown him to the wolves, and he knew it. After court adjourned, Nathan pulled me aside, his voice hoarse. "You don't understand. KMC doesn't lose. If you keep pushing, it won't just be you. Everyone you care about, gone." For the first time, I saw it clearly. Nathan wasn't a rival anymore. He was a trapped man, too deep to escape. That night, back at my apartment, I opened my door carefully, paranoid, listening. The place was quiet, but when I stepped into the living room, I froze. On my coffee table lay a single object. My father's old leather briefcase. I hadn't seen it in years. It was supposed to have been destroyed in the accident that killed him. Inside the briefcase was a note. "He fought us too. Look where it got him. E.H." My breath caught in my throat. Hale hadn't just known my father. He had been part of his death. The briefcase trembled in my hands. My father's leather case. The one I'd been told was destroyed in the accident. But the note inside told me the truth I never wanted to face. His death wasn't an accident. For years, I had carried the grief like a stone. I told myself fate was cruel, that the world took him from me. But now I saw it clearly. Hale's shadow stretched back decades. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had stolen my father, too. I sat on the floor, shaking, whispering to the empty room. "Dad, I'm going to finish what you started." The next morning, I confronted Alvarez with the briefcase. Her face went pale as she read the note. "This changes everything," she whispered. "If Hale orchestrated your father's death, it means KMC has been embedded in this firm for years, longer than we thought." Her words lit a fire inside me. This isn't just my fight anymore. This is a legacy. That day in court, Nathan was a ghost. His arguments were scattered, his hands shaking as he fumbled with his notes. The jury barely looked at him. Hale had clearly decided Nathan was finished. But Hale himself sat in the back, calm as ever, his eyes locked on me. That smile still lingered, the kind that said, "You'll never touch me." After adjournment, I returned to my office to find a single file waiting on my desk. No note, no signature, just a folder. Inside were photographs, my father, years ago, standing outside Barton Hale, and another photo, a grainy image of him in a heated argument with Hale. Pinned to the last page was a business card, the same golden letters as before, KMC. I stared at it, my pulse hammering. My father hadn't just known Hale, he had fought him, and he had paid the price. That night, Alvarez called me. "Callista, I've spoken to 2 other partners. They've seen enough. They're willing to testify against Hale if we can protect them." "Protect them how?" I asked. Her silence told me everything. There was no guarantee. Standing against Hale meant gambling with lives. As I hung up, my phone buzzed again. Another message. "Your father didn't listen, will you? Ouch." My vision blurred with fury. Hale wasn't just threatening me anymore. He was daring me. I whispered into the dark, my voice steady now. "No, Edward, I won't listen. I'll burn you down." The note burned in my hands. "Your father didn't listen. Will you?" It was no longer just intimidation. It was a declaration of war. By morning, my decision was made. I wouldn't back down. I wouldn't flinch. Hale thought he could frighten me into silence, but all he had done was give me purpose. I met Alvarez before court. Her office blinds were drawn, her voice hushed. "2 partners are ready. If you present the evidence, they'll corroborate. But Callista, if you go through with this, Hale won't just try to fire you. He'll try to erase you. I nodded. Then we give him no choice but to burn with us. That day in court, I shifted my strategy. Instead of focusing on Nathan's fumbling defense, I began connecting the dots in front of the jury. Shady billing practices, mysterious consulting firms, the kind of financial trails that screamed corruption. Nathan objected so many times the judge grew visibly impatient. His desperation only made him look guiltier. But Hale just sat in the back row, watching me with eyes like cold steel. During recess, I cornered Nathan in the stairwell again. His face was pale, his tie loose. "You know Hale set you up, don't you?" I said quietly. He swallowed hard. "Doesn't matter. You can't win against him. Nobody does." "Then help me," I pressed. "Give me something. One document, one witness, anything." For a second, I thought he might fold. His eyes darted, hands trembling. But then he shook his head violently. "If I talk, they'll kill me." He stormed off, but the fear in his voice was real. Nathan wasn't my enemy anymore. He was a hostage. That night, Alvarez and I met with the two partners secretly. We spread the evidence out across her dining table, emails, billing records, even the memo with Hale's signature. One partner whispered, "If this goes public, it will destroy the firm." I looked at them, fire in my chest. Then maybe that's what needs to happen. But just as we began outlining next steps, a rock shattered Alvarez's dining room window. We ducked as glass sprayed across the floor. Outside, in the darkness, a car engine roared to life and sped away. On the rock was a note, scrawled in black ink. "Next time, it won't be a warning. KMC." My hands clenched into fists. They wanted me scared, but all it did was make me angrier. For the first time, I wasn't just preparing to expose Hale. I was preparing to bring the entire house of cards down. The night after the rock shattered Alvarez's window, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk, staring at the pile of evidence spread out before me. Emails, billing records, offshore transfers, the memo with Hale's signature. All of it could burn him, but only if I survived long enough to present it. By dawn, I made my decision. I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. I was going to prosecute Hale in the court of public opinion, right from the witness stand. At court that morning, Nathan looked like a man already buried. His tie was crooked, his eyes hollow. He avoided Hale's gaze, flinching every time the judge addressed him. Hale, on the other hand, was sharper than ever. Perfect suit, calm smirk, the kind of confidence that comes from knowing the system bends for you. When recess came, Alvarez squeezed my hand. "It's time, Callista. Tomorrow we drop the hammer. The partners are ready to back you, if you make the first strike." I nodded, but unease gnawed at me. Hale wouldn't wait for tomorrow. He'd move first. That night, my suspicion proved right. When I returned home, the locks had been tampered with again. My chest tightened as I pushed the door open. The apartment was silent, too silent. Then I saw it, my laptop, smashed on the floor. Every drive, every backup, gone. On the wall, scrawled in red paint, "No more files, no more chances." KMC. My hands shook. Months of work, evidence, proof, obliterated. But then, in the pit of my despair, I remembered the flash drive Maya had given me. I had hidden it in Alvarez's safe, just in case. They hadn't gotten everything. The next morning in court, Hale leaned back in his chair, smug. He thought he'd erased me. I stood, holding my briefcase tightly. Inside was the last surviving weapon. But just as I was about to rise to address the court, Nathan collapsed at the defense table. His body hit the floor, convulsing violently. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Paramedics rushed in, people shouting. Hale didn't move. He just watched me, his smile cold, as if to say, "This is what happens to those who get in my way." Nathan's body convulsed on the marble floor, his eyes rolling back. "Call an ambulance," someone screamed. Paramedics stormed the courtroom, wheeling him out on a stretcher. His tie dangled loosely, his skin pale, sweat soaking through his shirt. The judge called for order, but the gallery was chaos. Reporters whispered frantically, pens flying across notebooks. I sat frozen, my hands gripping the edge of the table. Was this real? Or had Hale just made his move to silence Nathan forever? I looked up. Hale hadn't flinched. He sat in the gallery, calm, composed, his eyes on me. The faintest smile lingered, like he was daring me to connect the dots. Alvarez leaned close, whispering urgently. This isn't coincidence, Callista. Nathan knew too much. Hale just erased him. Her words sent a chill through me, but beneath the fear, something else ignited. Rage. Nathan may have been my rival, but he was also a victim. Another casualty in Hale's war. The judge adjourned the session early. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed me. Microphones thrust into my face. Ms. Monroe, do you believe Nathan Cross was poisoned? Is Barton and Hale connected to his collapse? Do you have proof of corruption inside your firm? I said nothing, not yet. My silence only fed their hunger. Cameras flashed, headlines forming before my eyes. That evening, I sat with Alvarez and the two partners at her apartment. The evidence lay between us like dynamite, waiting for a spark. We strike tomorrow, Alvarez said. We present everything, the jury, the press, the entire city. They'll see Hale for what he is. But doubt not at me. If Hale had really poisoned Nathan, what would he do to me once I made my move? My phone buzzed again. A new message. Nathan should have stayed quiet. You won't get another warning. EH. I read it aloud, my hands shaking. The partners exchanged terrified glances. One whispered, if we testify, will we end up like Nathan? I looked at them, fire in my veins. Then we make sure the world is watching when we do it. Hale can't kill us all in the light. For the first time, I saw it clearly. The only way to survive was to expose him so loudly, so publicly, that not even KMC could silence me. Tomorrow I would burn the house down. The courtroom was quieter than usual the next morning. Everyone felt the shadow of Nathan's collapse. His seat sat empty, a silent warning of what happened to those who crossed Hale. I stood at the plaintiff's table, my briefcase heavy with evidence. My pulse thundered in my ears. This was it. No more waiting. No more fear. When the judge called us forward, I rose, my voice steady. Your Honor, I have new evidence that strikes at the very heart of this case. Not just theft of files, but corruption that reaches beyond this trial. The defense exploded with objections, Nathan's replacement lawyer shouting until his face turned red. But the judge, intrigued, held up a hand. Proceed, Ms. Monroe. Show us what you have. I opened the folder and projected the first email on the screen. Nathan forwarding stolen files. Kravis drafting falsified metadata. Offshore accounts routed through KMC. And finally, Hale's signature authorizing it all. The jury gasped. Reporters' pens scratched wildly. The gallery buzzed like a hive. I turned, pointing directly at Hale. This man has used his firm not for justice, but for profit. He orchestrated the theft of evidence, paid off experts, and silenced anyone who stood in his way. He has turned Barton and Hale into a shield for criminals. The room erupted. Hale didn't flinch. He rose slowly, his calm voice cutting through the noise. Lies, he said, smooth as silk. This young woman is desperate. Her father was a disgraced lawyer, and she's following his path. She forged these documents, and she's willing to destroy a firm's reputation to cover her own failures. My chest tightened. He was twisting it, reframing my evidence as delusion. And the jury? Some of them looked uncertain. Alvarez rose from the gallery. Your Honor, as a senior partner of Barton and Hale, I can confirm the authenticity of these documents. And I am not the only one. Other partners are willing to testify. Gasps again. The judge leaned forward. Then we will hear from them. But just as Alvarez stepped toward the stand, the lights flickered. The screens went black. A murmur spread through the room. Then, in the dark, a voice echoed from the back. You should have stopped, Callista. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't Hale. It was the man in the dark coat. When the lights snapped back on, he was gone. And on the judge's bench lay a small envelope. The bailiff opened it, eyes widening. Inside was a photo of me, standing outside my apartment last night, with a red X slashed across my face. The photo with the red X burned into my mind. Not a warning, a promise. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at Alvarez's apartment, surrounded by boxes of evidence and guarded silence. But even there, I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on me, that shadows waited just beyond the window. Alvarez poured me coffee, her hand trembling slightly. Callista, they've marked you. There's no going back now. I nodded, staring into the cup. Then we burn it all tomorrow. No half measures, no holding back. If Hale wants war, we give him one. The next morning, the courthouse was a fortress of tension. Reporters swarmed the steps. cameras flashing as I walked in. I held my head high, but every step felt like a countdown. In court, Hale radiated calm. He leaned back in his chair, watching me with that same cold smirk. Nathan's replacement lawyer stuttered through motions, clearly unprepared for the storm about to hit. I rose. Your Honor, before we continue, I have multiple witnesses prepared to testify. Partners of Barton and Hale. They will confirm corruption, offshore laundering, and Mr. Hale's direct involvement. The gallery erupted. The judge's eyes narrowed. Is this true? From the back, Alvarez stood, joined by the two partners. Their voices shook, but their words cut like knives. We confirm it. We've seen it. We were pressured to sign off. Edward Hale has corrupted this firm. Gasps. Reporters scrambled, typing furiously. Hale finally sat forward, his mask cracking. He stood, his voice icy. This is a circus. Do you really believe these liars over decades of my reputation? This woman's father was a disgrace. She is the same. I felt fury coil in me. My father fought you. He died fighting you. And now, Edward, the truth will bury you. The judge slammed the gavel. Order! But the room was chaos. Reporters shouting, jurors whispering. Alvarez pressing documents into the record. For the first time, Hale looked cornered. And then it happened. A loud crack echoed through the chamber. A window shattered. People screamed, ducking under benches. The bailiffs rushed forward. On the floor where the glass rained down lay a single bullet casing. No one was hit, but the message was clear. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a battlefield. The gunshots' echo still rang in my ears. The jury cowered. Reporters dove beneath benches. The judge barked for order, but fear had already seized the room. I stood frozen, staring at the bullet casing on the floor. It gleamed under the fluorescent lights like a signature, KMC, marking their territory. Hale didn't move. He just adjusted his cufflinks, calm as ice, while chaos swirled around him. His message was clear. This is my court, my city, my rules. The session adjourned early, the judge insisting on extra security. But I knew better. There was no wall of guards strong enough to keep Hale's reach away. Outside, reporters swarmed me again. Ms. Monroe, do you believe the shooting was a message for you? I forced myself to meet their cameras. I believe the truth is dangerous, but it's the only thing worth fighting for. That night, I sat in Alvarez's apartment, every window locked, every curtain drawn. The two partners were there too, pale and restless. We spread our evidence across the table like generals before a battlefield map. One partner whispered, "After today, maybe we should stop. Walk away while we still can." I slammed my fist against the wood. No, that's what Hale wants. That's what KMC wants. My father died fighting them. Nathan nearly died. I won't let their deaths be meaningless. Alvarez touched my arm gently. Then tomorrow we finish it. The next morning, the courthouse was crawling with security. Metal detectors, armed guards, bomb-sniffing dogs. But none of it eased the knot in my chest. When I entered, Hale was already there, immaculate, smiling faintly, as if daring me to try. The judge began. Ms. Monroe, you may proceed with your evidence. I stood, holding up the final folder, the flash drive Maya had given me. Inside was the crown jewel. Proof of Hale's offshore payments directly linked to KMC's laundering network. The jury leaned in, the press scribbled furiously. This was the moment. But just as I prepared to load the files onto the projector, the screen flickered, then went black. Gasps filled the room. My laptop screen flashed a single message before dying completely. This ends now. KMC. The courtroom buzzed with panic. Hale leaned back smirking. And I realized the truth. KMC wasn't just watching. They were inside the system. The words glowed on my dead laptop screen before it went black. This ends now. KMC. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Reporters shouted. The jury looked terrified. And Hale. Hale leaned back, calm as a man who believed he had already won. For a moment, fear strangled me. They had erased the files, cut the lights, shot through windows, marked me for death. But then I remembered my father's briefcase, his note, his warning. Don't let them bury the truth. Slowly, I rose. My voice shook at first, but grew stronger with every word. They want us to believe the evidence is gone. That silence will protect us. But I made copies. And those copies aren't just here. They're everywhere. The gallery froze. Hale's smile faltered for the first time. I pulled out my phone, holding it high. Last night, I uploaded everything to the cloud. Every email, every offshore transfer, every memo with Hale's signature. And right now, I nodded toward the press row. The files are being emailed to every major newsroom in the city. Reporters' phones buzzed simultaneously. One by one, they stared at their screens in shock. Whispers erupted. Some stood, already calling their editors. Hale shot to his feet, face red. "She's lying, fabricated evidence. Do not believe this." But Alvarez cut him off, her voice ringing clear. "I testify under oath. These documents are authentic. I saw them with my own eyes, and I will not be silent any longer." The partners stood beside her. "Neither will we." The room exploded. Reporters surged forward. The judge pounded the gavel, shouting for order. Hale's mask cracked completely now, rage twisting his face. He lunged toward me, but bailiffs restrained him. His voice was a roar. "You think you've won, Callista? KMC is bigger than me, bigger than you. You'll never be safe." I met his eyes, steady. "Maybe not, but at least the world will finally know who you are." The judge's gavel slammed. "Court adjourned." Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. Hale was dragged away, still spitting threats. In the chaos, I stood still, my breath shaking, tears blurring my eyes. Not from fear, but from release. My father's fight was finally over. Later, outside the courthouse, Alvarez touched my shoulder. "You've lit a fire, Callista. It won't be easy, but it will burn long after today." I looked up at the sky, the city lights flickering like stars. My heart still ached. Scars that would never fully heal. But in that ache, there was strength. Because betrayal had nearly broken me, but revenge had rebuilt me. And for the first time in years, I felt free.